you so much, Ben, and welcome back, everybody. Lovely to see you again. And just a note before we start, which I will say again, from now until the day after Yom Kippur, we will have a class every week. So we have been warming up until now, and now is the time where we're really hitting our stride with our preparation for the days of awe. Today, when we began this class a few weeks ago, we talked about the usefulness of having a group to actually support and encourage us to do the work of teshuvah, of soul repair, introspection, bringing our awareness to this season. And so today, my hope is that we're actually going to have some time to check in with one another. We won't be doing that quite yet. We're going to leave a little bit more time for people to keep arriving. But we will be having an opportunity to share with one another if we have started that process of review, introspection, clarification of what we want to adjust, and if so, how that's going, and what our intentions are, what our goals are. To up-level that as we are just about 2.5 weeks away from Rosh Hashanah right now. We're coming up on the full moon this weekend, so that will be 2 weeks from Rosh Hashanah. But before that, I'd like to us to review some of the really big ideas of this wonderful text, namely that with our attention, this season can make a difference in our lives. So I'm going to post into the chat right here the source sheet for today, which just makes it a little easier for us all to be literally on the same page. So did everybody see that in the chat? If you copy and paste that, you should be able to open that sheet in your browser. Everybody got that? I'll just give people a moment. Janie, are you waving your hand to ask a question?
Actually, I love the book, don't get me wrong, but I have to make a major correction of an error Rabbi Lew made. It's a physiological error. He talked about when you're in a state of stress, like an animal could attack you and you need more blood in your arms and your legs for that event. I actually taught biofeedback assisted relaxation training for 36 years, and it's the opposite of that. When you are in a state of stress, your blood, your peripheral vasodilation clamps down and you don't bring blood out to your hands and feet. So you have more blood in your core. So when I read his error, when I spent my whole career, 36 years, 2 lifetimes on this, I almost put the book down. But I absolutely do love the way he writes, and I'm a big fan of Rabbi Nachman and Rabbi Heschel. So I enjoy the way he writes, but there is a misconception there. So if you've done your meditation and your relaxation the way you know you've made a physiological change without the use of biofeedback equipment, all you need to do is put your fingertips to your cheeks. So I can tell you right now, since I'm talking to all of you, and it's made me somewhat nervous, my tips are cooler than my cheeks, which means I'm not relaxed. But when you take a rest, when you meditate, you will notice the blood goes out to your hands and feet, and the sympathetic nervous system clamps that down when you are stressed. So that is a huge error in his book.
Thank you so much for pointing that out. And you know, there are a few points where there may be factual inconsistencies or unreliabilities, and I think it's worth noting, particularly given the name of this book, This is Real and You Were Completely Unprepared, that Rabbi Lew actually died very suddenly I believe he was in his 50s, maybe his 60s. He was not advanced in years. Um, and one morning he was actually at a retreat and he took a walk and he suffered a massive heart attack. And it was very, very sad because had he been around people, it's possible that they would have been able to save him, but he was in the woods on his own. And so he died really very suddenly. I'm sure there are a few revisions that could have been made to the book had he lived longer. A very important principle in our spiritual practice is to extend Rahmanas, to extend forgiveness, compassion, and allow that people make mistakes. So I thank you, Janie, for your ability to overlook something you know to be incorrect and say this is still a very valuable text. I also have come across things in this book I don't think are quite accurate, but nonetheless, it's a helpful guide to us. So I'm asking us all to extend a little bit of forgiveness for where we do see errors or things that we disagree with. I would love to invite somebody to read for us this first section that I've put up on the source sheet about the particularity of time. Yeah, would somebody be willing to read? You can. Bamaya, would you like to read for us?
Sure. So just from our source sheet, right?
Yeah, the first box that we have.
Righty. The particularity of time. Judaism believes in the particularity of time, that certain times have special properties, that Shabbat has an extra degree of holiness, that Passover is the time of our liberation, that Shavuot is a time unusually conducive to revelation. But they have special properties only when we are mindful. If we consciously observe Shabbat, Shabbat has this holy quality. If we don't, it is merely Friday night, merely Saturday afternoon. What our tradition is affirming with these claims is the healing power of time. What our tradition is affirming is that when we reach the point of awareness, everything in time, everything in the year, everything in our life conspires to help us. Everything becomes the instrument of our redemption. The passage of time brings awareness, and the two together, time and consciousness, heal. This is precisely the journey we take every year during the high holidays, our journey of transformation and healing, a time which together with consciousness heals and transforms us, and the urge to return, that primal impulse buried deep in our psyche, is the current that propels us down this river. It is the impulse that launches the healing process.
Beautiful. So the question for everybody is, do you agree? What do you think of this idea that time can have special properties if we invest it with that awareness or expectation? Have you found that to be true? What are the limits to the truth of that idea? What do you think? And please, if you could raise your hand using the reaction button, then we'll be able to see you even if you're not on the first screen of But Maya, is your hand still up from before, or do you have a comment? Oh, you can't say anything. Sharon.
No, I'm sorry.
Oh, you
I
are. Please,
yes,
yes.
it was I was raising again.
Yeah,
So
please, yeah.
I definitely think that it's true that when you pay attention to the months in that rhythm that the Hebrew calendar is in, that it's very resonant. I lived my whole life not on that calendar and noticed that when I started to, things really started to shift for me in a way that I don't think it would have had I not noticed. One of the things that I like is that there's times to celebrate, and then there's set times to be sad. I used to really have a lot of issues with being depressed often, just all the time. But now I sort of know that I have a time to get to that sadness. So I don't have to like drag it around with me all the time. So that's really nice. And there's times to be celebratory and times to look inward, times to look out towards others and be giving. So it makes the year very much more balanced um, in that way for me.
Beautiful. Thank you. Yes, I appreciate that. Sharon and then Ren.
I think the text so nicely puts out there, and good morning, everybody, that, or afternoon, depending on where you are, that it also takes intention and attention, because if you don't notice it, you won't have the experience of it being different.
Mm-hmm. 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 And something I heard in what Bamaya was saying was also that the presence of community or a collective structure helps with that very much as well. Ren.
I wanted to share two examples. The first one is your birthday. So your birthday is a day that you pay attention to. It becomes a very special day for you and for other people in your life that pay attention to it. But to the rest of us who might not even know it is your birthday, it's, you know, a regular old Tuesday. And kind of in that same vein, to share with you the idea of when the Jewish holidays are the major ebb and flow of how a society runs, like in Israel, life takes on a different feeling. We were privileged to spend 1 year Hanukkah in Israel for our son's B'nai Mitzvah. And everywhere we went, there were pop-up shops with donuts. There were little, you know, foil wrapped Hanukkah candies. Every hotel we stayed in had menorahs in the lobby and different flavors of donuts every night for you to come and light them and gain tons of weight. But you just felt the ebb and flow of the holiday in a different way because you were made aware of it. Whereas, you know, in the States, you remember that it's Hanukkah if you have little kids, and you usually remember sometime around dinner time. And then you forget about it for the rest of the day. But when it's around you all the time and you're aware of it all the time, yes, I agree with him.
Yeah. Yeah. There's a very interesting book called In the Shadow of the Cross, which talks about how much American society is infused with the Christian calendar, whether or not there's supposed to be a separation of church and state, where, you know, in a parallel way, our cultural reality is infused with a certain sacred calendar, which is not the Jewish one. Somebody has put into the chat here, Troy says, Shabbat's energy is always available. We choose whether or not to tap into it. And I think that's a place where I, like Janie, would argue with Rabbi Lew in saying that it only exists if we put consciousness into it, because actually Jewish tradition states that there's a difference between Shabbat and the other holidays, in that Shabbat, say the rabbis, fundamentally exists in a way that the holidays are human allocations. So different from the way that the holidays are human allocations. And interestingly, there's a place in the Talmud where they discuss what should you do if you're, say, on a desert island and you don't know which day is Shabbat. What should you do? One opinion says you should count 6 days and then on the 7th day celebrate Shabbat. So basically, you should arbitrarily decide which day is Shabbat. You've got no way to know which day is actually Shabbat. The other says, no, you should do it mathematically like this. You should have 1 day of weekday, then 1 day of Shabbat, then 2 days of weekday, then 1 day of Shabbat, then 3 days of weekday, 1 day of Shabbat. Now, you might think this is very counterintuitive because you completely lose the rhythm of having 6 days of work and then 1 day of Shabbat. But mathematically, you only have a 1 in 7 chance. If you go with the first method, namely you just decide you're going to start at day 1 and then keep the 7th day as Shabbat, you only have a 1 in 7 chance of getting it right. Whereas if you do the second method, the mathematical method, you will sometimes land on the day which is, quote unquote, actually Shabbat. even though you completely lose the sense of having a week of work and then one day off, which is, I think, quite interesting, because it's a way of indicating that they do think, this second opinion thinks, there really is a day which is actually Shabbat. It's not an arbitrary human allocation. It's a mystical property of the seventh day. So a little tidbit for you. Susan, I'd love to hear what you have to say.
Hello. I live in Baltimore, but I spent the last week with family at a vacation house on Lake Ontario. And in Baltimore, I live in a neighborhood that is largely frum. I'm traditional, but I'm not frum myself. But when I'm at home in Baltimore, I'm very much aware of Shabbat, and also of saying, the prayer upon awakening, and when I'm eating, the prayer before the meal, and being with my family that's more secular. I didn't experience any of Shabbat last Friday night and last Saturday. So I can't remember even exactly what the question was, but I missed Shabbat last week because I was in a different place with different people.
Great. Yeah, context and community certainly has a huge impact. So the next question is, if we agree that with our attention, with our awareness, certain periods of the year can and do serve certain spiritual functions, why do you think we place this process of introspection and self-renewal at this season of the year? Why now? Jenny, do you want to say something to this question that I just asked?
I can say something to this question. I love the way Rabbi Lew started with tearing the walls down at Tisha B'Av, and the whole experience not ending until you build your sukkah. And therefore, you're not skidding into the 10 days of awe ill-prepared. Last year, I went to the mikveh on Rosh Chodesh Elul, and it altered my whole feeling about the high holidays, starting my preparation during the month of Elul. And I'm just saying, by the time Yom Kippur comes, when you've started the preparation more than a month out, a month and a half out, Yom Kippur is very satisfying. It's a completion, or it feels that way, because you haven't just had 10 days to get ready for it. And so I highly recommend what we're doing in this class. So that's what I had to say. Yeah, his whole presentation has given me a whole new way of looking at the high holidays as a period in time.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. Sarah says in the chat that in the Northern Hemisphere, the natural world seems to be dying off, but it's just the beginning of a new cycle. So it's interesting to note that we begin this cycle of renewal with the apparent death or ending of things, which is quite interesting. Does anybody else want to chime in with thoughts on why now? Why this period of the year is the one that we allocate for this process of introspection? Dov, please.
Hi. Yeah, I would say to me, this time of year feels the most abundant. Nature is providing the full bounty of the harvest. And when we're most resourced, we're able to, our energy is available to kind of, male onto the next madrigot to raise our awareness, where we're not having to focus on plowing the fields.
Beautiful. I love that point. Thank you so much. I'm going to ask Troy and then David to share.
Yes, can you hear me?
Yeah, we hear you.
Okay, yeah, I was unmuted for a while. It's in a similar vein with harvest. It implies gathering, counting, and preparing, and then eventually selling. So all those themes are during this time period.
Ah, beautiful. And somebody else points out, Iris or Conrad points out that it balances the other period of the year where we do a sort of cleaning. We clean house more literally at Passover. And it's been pointed out that Passover is collective in a way that Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur, even though we are very much gathering together in community to do it, the work is really based on the internal accounting. But we have these two holidays, fall and spring, that balance one another. David.
So in addition to the sort of the natural cycle, there's also the cycle of the Torah that comes to fruition at this time of the year. And that we're following the whole cycle of the Torah through the year. This is the time where we're offered in the Torah to enter the promised land, right? And to enter that opportunity spiritually on our own each year to go deeper into our spiritual lives and deeper into the consciousness and the awareness that all through the year we have all these times to practice. But this goes to the deepest moment of that cycle that follows the Torah around the year.
Beautiful, thank you. Let's hear from Sharon and from Chaim, and then I'll share a little bit more from Rabbi Lew.
So my daughter is a natural resources person, and what I've learned from her is that it's actually not things dying off in the fall. It's actually the energy is being sent down into the earth. It's the energy is going down. So like David was talking about going deeper, we're actually grounding. It's like reconnecting with the earth. And the way I think of this from this conversation is we're becoming more internal. And Elul starts that work of internalizing, but also sending down and grounding and connecting. And then as this work goes on in Passover, I think we're becoming more external and cleaning our external environment. And summer, again, is more external. We're out, we're doing the harvest, we're collecting, and then we go back in.
Beautiful. That's a wonderful way to put it. So rooting in and down, connecting with our sustenance and our source. I love that. Thank you. Chaim.
Sorry about that. In connection with what was said about the harvest, the harvest is something that would make people think of, what a great job they did, and it's sort of a need to counter that and realize the dependence on God. And maybe that would also be influenced by the fact that there's a forthcoming season of fall and winter when you're going to need to rely more on God to get through that.
Yeah, thank you. So counteracting a potential for some hubris, perhaps thinking that it's of our success is of our own making. I see there are a couple of hands, but I'd like to take a moment to read a little bit more right now from This Is Real. And Cantor Mark, you offered to read for us. So put your hand up so I can see you and unmute you, please. Because otherwise I can't see you.
Yeah, I'm having problem with my camera. I'll have to be an invisible voice.
Okay, great. Deus Ex Machina. Please read for us about divine attention.
In Israel, the 7th month of the year, it was an anxious time. All the other civilizations of the ancient Near East were sustained by great rivers. The Egyptians had the Nile, the Babylonians had the Tigris and the Euphrates, but Israel was completely dependent on rain. The rains came in the 8th month, so the 7th month was a time when the nation of Israel felt its life hanging in the balance. This utter dependence on the heavens seems to have given the ancient Israelites an intense sense of their dependence on God. It may well have been this dependence that sensitized the Israelites to the existence of God in the first place. The ancient Israelites felt themselves to be part of a vast, interpenetrating whole, a cosmos in which the weather and their own moral condition were active and interdependent constituents. The round of holidays we now call the days of awe gave form to this sense. God's mindfulness of us is the sine qua non of this holiday season. If there were no consciousness out there aware of us, responding to us, this whole round of holidays would make no sense at all, and neither would life. The rains would fall at random, the heavens would shut themselves up, and we would live and die without meaning. Equally important is our awareness of God. We shouldn't imagine this was any less problematic for the ancient Israelites than it is for us. If they found it easy, they wouldn't have needed 100 blasts of the great Shofar to bring them back to an awareness of the supernal oneness or its inescapable sovereignty over all creation. And it is real, whether you believe in God or not. Perhaps God made it real and perhaps God did not. Perhaps God created this pageant of judgment and choice, of transformation, of life and death. Perhaps God created the book of life and the book of death, teshuvah and the blowing of the shofar. Or perhaps these are all inventions of human culture. It makes no difference. It's equally real in any case. The weeks and the months and the years are also inventions of human culture. Time and biology are invention of human culture. Language and stories, love and tragedy, inventions of human culture. But they are all matters of life and death, all real and all inescapable.
Thank you so much. Beautifully read, with or without your picture. All right, big idea here. Does it matter whether you believe in God? Does any of this make spiritual sense to do if you don't believe in God? Discuss. I'm glad you're taking a minute to think about it. Danielle.
I'm sorry, I'm not understanding this question here. If we don't believe in God, then why should we do it?
That's the question.
But I suppose people who do not believe in God don't do it.
I personally know a lot of people who don't believe in God who still celebrate the high holidays.
Oh, really?
Oh yeah, for sure. You don't know anyone like this?
Well, I guess I never asked them whether they take it seriously or not. I kind of just suppose they do. Because I also find that even apart from being aware of it, I have special dreams in this time in the month of Elul, and they mean something extra. And I also notice that my thoughts, I'm very aware of them, and I think them, and then I immediately go deeper into them. Whilst in other months, I don't do that. And it comes quite a kind of naturally.
Interesting. So you find that things are more online, that there's the veil is thin, something you have more access to at this season. Very interesting.
Yeah, certainly.
Wonderful. Nan, let's hear from you, and then Cantor Mark and Johanna.
Thank you. I would posit that it is not necessary to believe in God in order to participate meaningfully in the entire process of teshuvah, Rosh Hashanah, Yom Kippur, etc. On the contrary, I think that those of us who struggle with belief, I think participating in it as a way you can want to believe, even if you don't actually believe. And I think practicing the rituals, I think those are avenues into belief. I don't think, we're not Christians. Judaism is not a faith-based religion so much as it is a religion of behavior, I would say, action, mitzvot. And so I think that one of the ways that it's almost like building a muscle memory. It's how you build a muscle memory. So this is you're building your spiritual muscle memory, is what I would say about it. I think most of the members of my shul are skeptics. And I waver back and forth between belief and wanting to believe, but I'll recite a prayer 1,000 times in hopes that on the 1,001st time, it will be true for me. Dibarti.
Shumati, beautifully said. Thank you so much. It's about building a muscle memory. And by practice, maybe we change by our outward practice, we may change our inner reality. I'll read also what Carol put in the chat, which is a Chabad rabbi who told her, you don't have to believe in God to be Jewish, just come on Shabbat. I think we will resonate with that. Just do it. Na'aseh v'nishma. Do it first and see what happens. Cantor Mark with a wonderful voice, please.
Sure. Too long didn't read. Short answer, yes.
Thanks.
I'm totally with Nan. I loved some of the points she made about muscle memory and the fact that ours is not a religion that demands that you declare your faith, that you believe in God. Your opportunities are to engage in the ritual, do the mitzvahs, be a mensch. That's what you need to do. That's the bottom line. But faith, that's extra credit. And I think for me, the container of the high holidays affords the opportunity to do exactly, I think, what Nan was pointing out, that we struggle, all of us, with the existence of God, with our personal connection. We have in a congregation I've been in for many years, there's a fellow named Stephen Longfellow Fisk, who's actually descended from the poet Longfellow. And during one of the services, he sings the following chorus. Remembering and forgetting, that's the game that we play. We drift so far, we forget who we are, till we remember that love is the way to remember. I'll remember to start that on a higher note next time, because I was scraping the bottom of my range. But that is just a refrain that helps me through the whole time. So that, doing the entire run of the high holidays, and I love the idea of doing it from Tisha B'Av to Sukkot time, if you will, gives me all that opportunity to expand my relationship with God, to combat the ideas I have that there is nothing more than just reality, all of those good things. Again, back to too long didn't read, yes.
Thank you. Before I call on you, Johanna, I'll just read a couple of the quotes in the chat for those who are on phones and can't see it. I like very much, Sharon says, our connection to ourselves, the earth, and other people don't depend on whether or not we believe in God. We can still be introspective. And Bamaya says, it's like government. You don't have to believe in it or like it, but you can't avoid participating in it. Both very fine points. Johanna.
Oi, I have to add, after all of that, after Cantor, Mark, and Nan, and everybody, I agree with what everybody has said, and I agree particularly with muscle memory and with mensch. And the quote that's floating around in my mind, and I'm going to botch it, I can't remember it perfectly, and I think it might have been by Hillel, is even if we do not believe we can complete the work, we are not excused from doing the work. And so in a larger way, the first time that I did a really thorough Elul practice for the 30 days, instead of just waiting until Erev Rosh Hashanah to get started, that was a big year for me. That was life changing. The amount of introspection I did, the amount of asking other people's forgiveness for transgressions I'd done 20 years ago. You know, it was huge and cleansing and powerful and life-changing. And it changed the way I interact with my loved ones, with strangers, with the world. And I believe that we have an obligation, like Cantor, Mark, and Nan were saying, you know, we have, actually, I don't want to put words in their mouth because my thoughts are starting to get a little jumbled, but we have a responsibility with Tikkun Olam. We have with mitzvot. We have a responsibility as Jews that our religion requires active participation. Do the work first and maybe faith will come. But the work is more important, and how we show up in the world to other people, how we help other people, when we are more kind and more generous and we come from a place of integrity, it ripples out to the greater good. It ripples out to other people. So the work we do goes beyond improving the quality of our own lives or improving the quality of our own relationship with God, or whether or not we believe in God.
It will have an impact either way. Thank you. Yes, and wonderful segue, because I want to bring our attention now to this. What have we been doing? How is it going? As all of us have signed up for this class to give ourselves a bit more of a run up towards the high holidays. And I'll just thank the people who gave us the exact citation that sorry, I forget who it was referring to, that it was Rabbi Tarfon who said, it's not upon you. You can't complete the work, but neither are you free to desist from it. Thank you for putting that in the chat for us. Last time we discussed 6 or 7 different techniques that Rabbi Lew suggests for areas of focus for this month. And we talked about perhaps just picking one and doing our best to hone in on that. I said they map quite nicely onto these 7 areas of focus or activity that can be described as the chakra system. Whether or not you have chosen one of these to practice stillness and meditate, to examine one area of life and desire, such as money or sex or food, whether or not you've chosen to hone into some practical aspects of your life and try to tie up some loose ends and finish incomplete business, to make yourself more available to the suffering of others, to focus in on prayer and speaking to God, hitbodedut, or to examine your methods of perception, or some other means of spiritual practice, spiritual focus during this month. What I'd like to do now is send everybody into breakout rooms. We're going to send people into groups of 5, so that hopefully everybody has at least a couple of others, because inevitably some people won't actually click on the thing. We're going to take about 15 minutes right now. So depending how many people there are in your group who join the breakout room, please divide the time equally and give everybody an opportunity to just share for, could be 3 minutes, 4 minutes, about how this is going. Have you taken on any extra practice this month? If so, what is it? And how's that going for you? What extra support might you need to enhance that practice? Where are you encountering resistance? Are you noticing any impact from doing this practice? I can type those questions up and put them in the chat, but it really is just discuss. What are you doing? What are you noticing as a result of what you're doing? So Ben, do you have that prep to send people?
I think we're back.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. I hope that folks found the opportunity to share with one another to be supportive and productive. one of the things, one of the reasons that Judaism emphasizes communal practice is the understanding that we behave better when we know someone's watching, as Rabbi Lew talks about in upcoming chapters. So I wonder if anybody would like, and Judaism also tells us it's important to say it aloud. As tempting as it might be to pray silently, we do believe that we actually affect the field by putting our vibration, our sonic vibration into it. So I wonder if anybody would like to say aloud, very briefly, an intention that they have for their practice, whether this is something you're already doing or something you'd like to be leaning more into. What would you like to do in preparation for the days of awe? And you could put it into the chat if you don't want to speak aloud, but in one sentence, what's your intention for what's your focus? Someone says, Gordon says to listen. Danielle says meditation. If you raise your hand, we'll call on you to speak. And the more specific you can be, the more it will help you. So to meditate, but do you mean every day? For how long? In what fashion? To be as present as I am able, to continue to tie up loose ends, to have conversations that matter with my family members, to recite more of the full morning ritual. I want to be more than to do, to ground, to be a human being more than a human doing, to practice hitbodedut, which means speaking aloud to God, to sing, listen to Shofar every day through YouTube, to go to the mikveh, to actually reach out to the people I'm thinking of rather than just thinking of them with love, to look more deeply into myself, to speak less, to read Torah. I'm going to just leave the space open for anybody who hasn't already shared with the group, to learn, to meditate with the group. To breathe when I'm irritable. Oh yes, the hardest thing. Troy, did you want to share an intention?
Yes. During this period, I want to learn as much about Judaism as I can. I just got enrolled in a course through the Jewish Theological Seminary of America. It's a context program. I get to be the liaison, which gave me a half-price discount. So learning as much as possible. And that incorporates into just daily life. We live in a secular world where secularism very easily crowds out the religious. But we did a walk. We live in Michigan across the Mackinac Bridge, which connects our two peninsulas. And it turns out that the designer of the bridge was a Jew named David Steinman. So just learning about that incorporates more Jewishness into my daily life. That's it.
Thank you. So taking it into the world, learning more, and also taking it into the wide world, lived reality. I love that. So I do encourage everybody to determine, to discern what each one of us is deciding to focus on, so that this is more than just an abstract endeavor, so that this class is actually supporting us in our practice during these critical weeks. In our last few minutes of the class, I'm going to turn our attention to the two practices that we take on during the month of Elul, the public practices that we take on specifically during this month, namely to hear the Shofar every day and to read Psalm 27. Traditionally is read morning and evening throughout this month. Rabbi Lew has lots to say about the Shofar, and we'll probably come back to this. But I'll ask somebody if someone would be willing to read for us. Please raise your hand. Read for us this section on Shofar, source number 6. relax. Danielle, at least read these first 2 paragraphs for us.
Suddenly, you are awakened by a strange noise. A noise that fills the full field of your consciousness and then splits into several jagged strands. Shattering that field, shaking you awake. The ram's horn, the shofar, the same instrument that will sound 100 times on Rosh Hashanah, the same sound that filled the world when the Torah was spoken into being on Mount Sinai, is being blown to call you to wakefulness. You awake to confusion. Where are you? Who are you? When the shofar sounds 100 times, it blows open the gates of heaven. When the shofar sounds 100 times, it forms a bridge between heaven and earth. And when we enter heaven on that bridge, when the shofar sounds 100 times, it cracks the shell of our awareness wide open. And suddenly we find ourselves in heaven. When the shofar sounds 100 times, we hear the voice of heaven in it. We experience revelation. God's voice comes down to earth on the same bridge we used to go up to heaven.
I'm going to pause it there. I'm going to invite everybody to close your eyes and come into a place of stillness. I'm going to blow the shofar for us right now. And the invitation is simply to see what it does. And it may be for some people, this is the first time hearing shofar this year. And for others, maybe we've been hearing every day. I think we all experience that there's something beyond words about the shofar. It's something quite a lot deeper than language. So rather than asking us to put anything into words right now, I want to leave that resonance with us. Thank you, Marianne, for posting the source sheet again. I've put a couple of different translations of Psalm 27 into the source sheet so that you have it easily accessible if that's a practice that you'd like to take on. And in our last couple of minutes of the class, as I said in previous weeks, we're going to play a little bit of music. The music that I'm going to play now is a setting of a verse from Psalm 27. It's by the wonderful renewal community of Jerusalem, Navat Tehillah. They've released several albums of beautiful contemporary Jewish music, and this is from their record specifically of High Holiday Chants that they released in 2012. This is verse 8 of Psalm 27, and I invite folks just to receive. The verse means, "To you my heart spoke," saying, "Seek my face." Ever-present source, I will seek your face. So as we come in for a landing today, I will just blow the shofar one more time, and with that we'll close the class. Wish me luck. As Rabbi Lew points out, however many times you blow the shofar, there's always a chance that it's not going to come out when you blow this time. The source of the music, I'll type in here. It's Naratihila, and that was from the High Holiday recordings. It's from Psalm 27, verse 8. Okay. One more blast on the shofar, and then we'll see you next week. Oh, for next week, please, if you can, read chapters 5, 6, and 7, and we'll be moving between them. If you can read less than that, read less than that, but I'll look forward to seeing you next Thursday, same time.